The first playoff rankings, it's kind of like a first kiss. It's fun. It's important. You like to go tell your buddies about it, but there's way more cool stuff coming down the pipe. So I know there are a lot of people that are happy in some spots, upset in others about what the College Football Playoff Committee gave us last night. We're going to put the top 25 that was revealed yesterday up and then show you how that looks in the College Football Playoff ranking format. But the thing I'm looking for over the next couple weeks, and we could get a little taste of it this week, but we're not going to know until we get a couple of these, isn't just who is where, but why they are there. What is the methodology of the committee? What is the formula that they are using to make these decisions? And will they stay consistent with it? Will they use that same methodology for the first reveal as they will on the fourth? Because it's the umpire rule to me. If you're going to give 6 inches on the outside corner, give it to both teams and for 9 innings. If you're going to use a formula to have the first playoff ranking reveal, use that same formula for the fourth and the fifth. So that's all I ask for is consistency. I want to dive right into this. I want to go ahead and bring in David Cohn, former Michigan quarterback, my brother, former Western State, Colorado wide receiver, Blaine Crain. And guys, I want to go ahead and put up that graphic. Let's put up the top 25 that was revealed last night. I'm not going to go through every single one of these, but I want to show the people, and then I want to get a reaction. So, Justine, go ahead and put that top 25 graphic up right now just so the people can see it before I kick it over to David. I'll give you the top 15 quickly. Oregon 1, Ohio State 2, Georgia 3, Miami 4, Texas 5, Penn State 6, Tennessee 7, Indiana 8, BYU 9, Notre Dame 10, Bama 11, Boise 12, SMU 13, Texas A&M 14, and LSU 15. We'll get to the playoff format here in a second, and I want to give you my thoughts in a second. But, David, I want to start with you because their top 12 was very close to our top 12 that we put out before the reveal yesterday. So it's kind of hard for me to sit here and argue this thing when it's as close to our model as it was. I do have a couple things, but what was a couple glaring things that you see, whether it be good, whether it be bad, or just in the methodology of it? How do you feel about it?
Yeah, I'm glad you hit on that point. I'm pretty proud of our list, honestly, especially after watching this. We take very careful consideration when we're putting those lists together, and you can argue any point on any list, right? That's kind of what these things are made for. But I really do think that we were pretty spot on with a lot of things, and I think that the committee, I like where they're headed right now because clearly they are valuing strength of schedule, but then they're also valuing being undefeated, even if you're a non-traditionally big brand team. So a couple things here. One, they did prioritize Georgia over Miami, with Georgia at 3 and Miami at 4. Remember, we went back and forth on that a little bit, and we put Miami up there being undefeated right now, even though there's some questions on defense. Clearly, the committee went with a 7-1 Georgia team over a 9-0 Miami team. If you're Miami, though, I don't think you're that upset about it, right? You're in the top 4, and all your business is still ahead of you. And then the 3 one-loss teams in a row before you get to the undefeated Indiana at 9-0 and BYU at 8-0, and those 3 teams are obviously Texas, Penn State, and Tennessee. So there's a little bit of this, hey, we are going to take into consideration strength of schedule and who you lost to, and losing to good teams matters, but also we're not going to be afraid of putting Indiana and BYU up there just because they're not traditional blue blood powerhouse teams.
I agree 100%. Blaine, what were your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree with some of that too, but I will say this: I don't know how BYU's at 9. All right, if we are doing strength of schedule and best wins, there's no reason that Indiana should be in front of BYU. BYU has 2 top 20 wins against SMU, which is a good ball club, beat the hell out of Kansas State. And I know it's a new team, but go look at Tennessee. I know it's an SEC team, but if we're going off strength of schedule, right, and the best wins, BYU should not be number 9 on this list.
Yeah,
where would you have them?
Yeah,
I would have them probably right now 6.
Well, I wrote down 3 things. And the first thing I wrote down, and this goes for all of it, and I want to give you another example here in a second, is obviously the committee does not respect the Big 12. If we're going to have a competition between the ACC and Big 12, because, I think we can all agree the SEC and the Big 10 we feel like are the 2 better conferences. It's not just that BYU is at 9. Iowa State lost 1 game and they're at 17. If you're going to say, well, being undefeated matters a ton, and you put Miami at 4, then how is BYU, who is leading the Big 12, remember Miami's leading the ACC, how is BYU, who is leading the Big 12 and is undefeated, all the way back at 9, and then Iowa State all the way back at 17. Then you got Kansas State at 19, Colorado at 20. You can say what you want about that, but obviously the committee yesterday showed that they believe the order is this. The Big Ten, the SEC, the Big 12, and the ACC. Maybe you can make an argument that they think the SEC and the Big Ten's even, or maybe even the SEC is a little bit better or thicker in the middle. I don't know, but you can obviously see the blatant disrespect to the Big 12. And you know what? I think some of it's warranted. I would put the Big 12 last too right now, I think, overall. The second thing I wrote down was, since Boise State starts at 12, if they win out, which they should, that means we're going to have a group of 5 team in the top 12 every single week. So they are basically signaling to you that Boise State is going to be that group of 5 team that gets in. And we're probably going to have them in every single ranking. If they would have started at 14, that would have been interesting to me, but they could have. You look at Alabama, they got to play LSU. A lot of things are going to shake out. I just didn't know if they were going to say, all right, since we have to have a group of 5 team that makes the playoff, we're going to start one. I don't think it's a coincidence it's at 12.
Yeah, right at 12.
Yeah. So I don't think that's coincidence. And the third thing is they were asked yesterday, I forgot who it was on the committee was asked, does the conference championship game loser, how are you going to weigh that? That is a question that we have asked on this show almost every single day, and you got a very political non-answer. It was kind of a, eye test, which you can manipulate that in many different ways. I've talked about the methodology. It needs to be a formula of strength of schedule, eye test, and we go back and forth there. So we still don't have a concrete answer on that. And guys, we're not going to get one until they show us. So we might as well stop asking the question. We can talk about it. That's fine. But I was glad they asked it. That was one of the main things I was hoping that they would ask. So those are the 3 things that I wrote down. I will say this as well when I look at this. A lot of it's going to work itself out. Okay, Georgia has to play Tennessee. Alabama has to play LSU. Texas has to play Texas A&M. We still have to have conference championship games. This, that, and the other. What I find the most fascinating coming down the stretch is if you are a team that you think may be on the bubble. Because right now, I don't think Penn State's on the bubble. When I look at Penn State's schedule, I think they're going to finish 11-1. I think they're not going to play in the Big Ten championship game, and they are going to be a host team in the playoff, and we're going to get to that playoff format in a second. But if you are a team that thinks you may be on the bubble, Tennessee, right? Whoever wins, the Alabama, LSU, whatever, it doesn't matter. You are actively rooting against Notre Dame because Notre Dame is a bid stealer in this format. Now, I want to make a comparison to college basketball, and then I'll get back to y'all. I don't want to be too long-winded here, but I think this is an apt comparison. We see this in the NCAA basketball tournament. They're called bid stealers. We see a team out of the MEAC, right, that goes almost undefeated the whole year. And they're going to get an at-large bid, but then they lose to like St. Francis, PA in the conference tournament in the championship game, and therefore St. Francis, PA gets in the tournament, and they do as well, which knocks out a bubble team. Notre Dame, even though they're a huge brand, I'm not saying they are a MEAC version of college football. They are a bid stealer if they go 11-1. 11-1 is getting Notre Dame in. So if you are worried about your team, if you're maybe SMU, that's worried if we get to the conference championship game and lose it and go 11-2, are we going to get in? I don't know if Notre Dame gets in. So that's who I would be watching. A lot of people are going to be Army fans because Notre Dame's going to beat the shit out of Florida State this weekend, and we all know that. So, David, just having said that, is there anything there you disagree with? Is there anything else that you think may be egregious here or what?
No, interesting points there. So I want to hit on Notre Dame and I want to hit on the group of 5 quickly. So as far as Notre Dame goes, you got to like where you are at 10 right now. I mean, you have a great win on the road to start the season at Texas A&M, and then you have one of the worst losses that we've seen against Northern Illinois. And the math equation that you're talking about and that we've been breaking down for Notre Dame is sort of, okay, look, at 11-1, they're going to make the college football playoff. I was talking about it today down at Mission Cigar Bar. Everybody agrees. 11-1, Notre Dame's going to get in. I don't care if it was to Northern Illinois or by how many points. 10-2, though, you're not going to get in because you don't play that conference championship game.
And you lost.
And even though,
yeah,
and even though that final game is against USC is down right now. They just made a change at quarterback. So while it is a great big brand rivalry game, you're not going to have that benefit. So we've been breaking that down this whole time, right? But at 10 right now, you have to say, okay, look who's ahead of us. 4 of these teams are going to play each other. right? Indiana's going to play the Buckeyes. Georgia's still going to play Tennessee. So if we're at 10 right now, and we already know we have to win the rest of our games, right? We already can't lose or we're not going to be in this thing no matter what. Then all you can do really is start to climb, because if you even move up one spot, if you're in the 5, 6, 7, or 8, well, they need to move up 2 spots from 10. But if you can get up 2 spots with all those teams ahead of you, then Notre Dame could not only make the playoff, but you would end up hosting in South Bend, which I think, that would be a really cool scenario for Notre Dame fans. Obviously, like you said, everyone else is pulling against you. Now, in the group of 5, I'm glad you brought that point up, because it's just so funny to look down and see Boise State right at 12. I just wonder if the committee felt the need to put Boise State in the top 12, because that's their top group of 5 team right now, and there has to mandatory be a group of 5 team in this year's college football playoff. Or, if they had been at 15, and maybe we can get Justine to bring up how the bracket would look right this second if this were to play out in the college football playoff format. There it is right now. So you can see the 5-12 matchup with the Buckeyes and Boise State. If you put Boise at 15, right, they would still usurp whoever was at 12, because you have to have the group of 5 playoff. And then the question becomes, okay, well, what happens if one of these teams who's ranked below Boise State ends up upsetting and winning their conference, but can't jump Boise State? All of a sudden, you're going to have the group of 5 team in the first year of the playoff get one of the first 4 byes, and one of the Power 4 conferences is going to be playing an opening weekend.
Yeah. No, it's a great point. I got a group of 5 question I want to ask you guys as well, but I want to go through, guys, and this is going to change. But if you're on audio, I want to read you the matchups that we would get right now in the college football playoff if it ended today. So if you're in audio listening, obviously visually, if you're watching, you can see this. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. We're going to get to the chat in a second. But here's the matchups, okay? In the 8-9 matchup, Tennessee is hosting Indiana.
Yeah.
That'd be an incredible atmosphere, and I think it would be a hell of a game. In the 7-10 matchup, Notre Dame would be going to Happy Valley to play Penn State in what I guarantee you would be a whiteout. I don't care what anybody says. It would be a whiteout. Then you go down to the 6-11 matchup. Bama goes to Texas. I shouldn't even have to say anything after that. All right, that's like watching Godzilla fight King Kong. And then you got Boise State would go to Ohio State. That running back matchup between what Ohio State has and Ashton Genty at Boise State would be phenomenal. So the winner of the Tennessee-Indiana game would play Oregon. Buckle up for that one. The winner of the Penn State-Notre Dame game would play Georgia. The winner of the Texas-Alabama game would play Miami. And Ohio State would play BYU if they beat Boise, which they probably would. Fellas, I'm going to tell you right now, it's going to change, but you can go ahead and sign me up for that, Cuzzo.
Pour it all over me. I want every bit of it, Coney.
Yeah, and I don't know who would win right now out of Tennessee and Indiana. I honestly don't. I don't know who would win out of Penn State and Notre Dame, or even Texas and Alabama. And how about that one right there? How fun would it be to see Texas and Alabama play for a 3rd straight year? They had the home and home the last 2 years. They're now in the same conference. Don't match up this year in SEC play. Probably won't be playing in the SEC championship game. And yet there's still a scenario where they could play in the college football playoff.
Anyway, this thing ends up, we're going to get mega matchups, and that's why they did it, and that's why they're going to expand it after they see all this money rolling in all these games. But I do want to ask you, Blaine, I want to ask you this, and then I want to get to the chat.
Okay.
Explain to me why Boise State, I know that one loss is at Oregon. It's the best loss you could possibly have right now, is at 12, yet Army is undefeated, and they're all the way back at 25.
No idea. I can't sit here and give you an honest answer for this.
And I'm not saying Army should be in front of them, but that's a 13 spot difference. That's about as big of a gap as you can get in a top 25 ranking.
Just makes no sense. I'm still on the boat that you shouldn't get a participation trophy to get into the playoffs. You shouldn't. You should be a top 12 team to get into the playoff. Doesn't matter if you're a group of 5, Power 4, the top 12 teams need to get in. You didn't just because you showed up doesn't mean you did it. Yeah. All right, you have to go earn it. And Boise State's a damn good football team. Your one loss was against Oregon on the road by a field goal, which a couple special teams plays doesn't happen. You might win that game. And right now, if we go through the year, do you all think Boise State will end up being a top 12, a best 12 team in the country? No, you don't. You don't.
I don't think they're better than Texas A&M. I don't think they're better than LSU. I don't think they're better than Ole Miss. But again, when you automatically give somebody a spot, this is what we have to deal with. That's why I'm going to go back to, there's a reason Boise's at 12 with a 12-team playoff, and Army is all the way back at 25. So to me, what if Army, they still control their own destiny. If they beat Notre Dame, Army's going to jump Boise State. And maybe that's, if there is chaos, maybe that's the only route that we could possibly have 2 group of 5 teams in, even though I think those percent chances are minimal at best, and probably is not going to
Yeah,
happen.
I'm glad you brought that up, though, because that's another point here. Not just the possibility of Boise State winning out and getting one of those first 4 spots rather than being the 12 seed, but yeah, what happens if they win out and a team like Army wins out? If that happens, Army's going to have a great win over who? They're going to have a great win over Notre Dame. Now that's going to knock Notre Dame out of the playoff, I believe. And if Army wins out and wins their conference, and Boise State wins out, you're not giving Boise State a chance to drop back at all. And that's a scenario where could we see 2 group of 5 teams make it in the first year?
I don't know. Chat, what do they think?
All right, Chad, hit that like, hit that subscribe button. If you donate on topic, it will get read. We're going to start the day off with FC. What's up, brother? Says, I might be in the minority here, but I think the top 4 college football playoff spots should always include 4 different conference representatives. And at least one G5 team should be in the top 12 each week.
Well, to your first point, they are 4 different conferences. Are you saying automatically the power conferences, you don't think that a group of 5 teams should finish in the top 4? And to be honest with you, I don't mind that. Now, I still think the possibility of that is very, very low. You know, say what you want about the Big 12, and we talked about the disrespect we thought we saw from the committee and that we did see. And I side with Blaine on this, though. Like, I don't feel like you should just get a spot because you are a group of 5 team. I can understand why one of the top 4 spots in the bye goes to the conference championship winner of each Power 4 conference. That makes sense to me. And I'm not saying that there aren't group of 5 teams that are a top 12 team in the country, but we saw Cincinnati get in when there was only 4. We've expanded the playoff. Therefore, we've expanded the opportunity for the group of 5 to get in without having to automatically put them in there. I'm for meritocracy. Does group of 5 get the short end of the stick more than the Power 4 does? Yes, but that's how life works. That's how it works. It's part of it. So I'm actually with Blaine on that. And I coached at a group of 5. I love group of 5, the Sun Belt, the MAC, the American, all that stuff. I love it. But I don't think you should get an automatic spot just because you're the little guy. I think you should have to earn it just like everybody else.
Let's go to Shadow 830. What's up, man? He says, who's the scariest team right now in the playoff bracket?
In the one that we just put up?
Correct, Coach.
Bring it back up.
I mean, I don't know how you say it's not Oregon, but that's a cop-out, and we're not going to give you cop-outs here. To me, I think the scariest team is Tennessee. And I say it for this reason. I think they got the best defense in the country. You can say what you want. Ohio State's up there, too. I think you can put Ohio State. There's a couple of others up there, and there's not a bad defense outside of Miami's, I think, on this list. But when I'm looking for growth still at this point in the season. Right? Because teams keep evolving. So we always talk about who is that complete team in all 3 phases that's elite in 2 of the 3 or 3 of the 3. The closest we got to that right now, I think, is Oregon. But when I look at Tennessee with that elite defense, I think the growth potential offensively is still there. I thought, and I'll continue to say, against Kentucky, Nico had one of his best games throwing the ball. They just had a bunch of drops. Guys got to make the catches. Now, they haven't been able to be on the same page a lot this year, but as far as which team could grow enough, on their weakest side of the ball to become that complete team outside of Oregon, I still think Tennessee is really dangerous.
Well, if you force me to pick a team off the bracket as it sits right now, the first week of the rankings here, then I would pick the Buckeyes. I mean, first of all, they're a really good team to start with. And 2, I don't think they've played their best football yet. They're well coached, and I do think that they're going to continue to get better week to week as November moves forward. And just the way that this bracket goes here, they'd meet up with Boise State first, like we talked about. I think they win that football game. And then you'd get to play the Big 12 representative, which right now in this one is BYU. I think they'd have a really good shot to be in the semifinal game playing, who would that be? The 1 seed, I guess. So Oregon in this scenario, if they were to beat Tennessee or Indiana.
I agree with that.
Hello there, viewer. Thanks for your time. Please hit that subscribe button. We'd really, really appreciate it. You guys are the best.